Creating a successful fintech is super tough. I've been fortunate enough to be part of the journey for 2 fintech unicorns, and I've become obsessed with cracking the code. Join me and my guests, all experts in their domain, as we attempt to find the secrets and share them with you. Welcome to the HiveMind. Welcome to another HiveMind top salesperson. I've got a new salesperson with me. I've got Khalid Qayum. Have I completely butchered your surname, Khalid?
That's fine. That's fine.
Great. So Khalid, thank you very much for giving up your time. Could you just introduce us for the audience?
Yeah, sure, James, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. So yeah, Khalid Qayum. I'm based just west of Glasgow in Scotland, 10 minutes from Glasgow Airport, which is handy because for the last 25 years, I've been working in the IT business, traveling all over the world, doing some quite large deals with mainly large UK banks and insurance companies.
Great. Yeah, very much aligned to my own experience. So, yeah, I mean, you talked about some of your big deals. Like, could you give us a feel? What's the biggest deal that you've ever done?
Yeah, so when I was working for Avaya, which is a telephony company, one of the largest contracts we closed as a business was with the Royal Bank of Scotland, where we supplied them with telephony for their back office, their trading floors, and then voice recording. And that was probably over the 8-year period a $400 million opportunity.
Okay, yeah, that's a monster. Well, you've beaten my record, so I'm going to have to kick you off now straight away.
Yeah, well, there was another one with Barclays, again, a managed service opportunity where that was about $74 million a year over 5 years, and then they extended for another 5 years because the service was adding exceptional business value to their business.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're talking about there is what I would describe as complex sales. And one of the things that I think is an interesting subject is how well understood do you think complex sales is as a kind of an elevated discipline as opposed to doing, as opposed to the sales skills involved in doing 50K deals?
Yeah, well, certainly it's a big mind shift required, right? You have to really put yourself in the customer's shoes. You've got to consider yourself and have them accept you as an extension to their own team. You have to be consultative. You have to show empathy. You've got to understand what they're trying to do as a business so that when you're having discussions with them, you're always offering maximum business impact along the way.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of sales gurus out there. I mean, I'm sure if you're anything like me, sometimes you listen to the advice, you think it's great, and sometimes you think, what the hell are you talking about? That just doesn't reflect to my experiences. Like, can you give us an example of like something that you believe that would contradict, I suppose, conventional wisdom?
Yeah, well, and you and I have discussed this before, right? Where I believe we're in an industry where we become very scientific about the sales process. Whether you're using, any sales methodologies out there, there's a whole range of them out there. But I'm a big believer in what I refer to as the emotional sale, right? And what I mean by that is understanding not only what's in it for the company and the business you're trying to sell to, but how can we make the prospect or the customer we're dealing with, how can we make them sleep better at night? I mean, I know when I'm running a big opportunity or, we're all stressed at work, you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, you can't get back to sleep. I'm a big believer in understanding, what keeps our prospect up at 4:30 in the morning? How can we help them get back to sleep for 5 o'clock so that they can then enjoy the rest of their business day? So it's something that I focus on a lot is the emotional part and what it means to the individual as well as what does it mean to the organization.
Well, you picked up a really interesting thread. I'd like to pull at 2 of those actually. And one of those is the individual, and like one of my old sales trainers used to say, "Whiffam, what's in it for me?" Like always reframe it as what's in it for the individual. But the second thing that you've said that's really interesting is about risk. isn't it? Like, 'cause it's that kind of visceral keeping someone up at night. And I think that's something that's often misunderstood, particularly in the kind of big deals that we're talking about here. Like, where you sell 50 grand, you're selling the upside. Like, but spend this 50 grand with me and you'll get this benefit. But when you're, dealing in millions or tens of millions, or even like in your case, hundreds of millions, it's a career-ending decision if it goes sideways, isn't it?
Well, correct, because the average person or team that we're dealing with in a CTO position, many of them are late 50s, early 60s, probably signed up, especially if they're for working within finance, have got a decent pension, and they probably don't want a weekend of cutovers or, out of hours cutovers to implement a big project. So risk is something very much that I focus on. How best can we minimize that? I know I was once having a conversation with a CTO of a global bank based in Canary Wharf, and he said to me, Khalid, unless you're going to make me money, save me money, or make me more compliant, I don't have any budget for you, because I've got one budget, and at any one time he's got 300 projects ongoing that people are asking him for the budget for. So unless it's going to tick the box in A, B, and C, you're not getting any budget. So I spent 8 or 9 months working with his business units, and I went back after 9 months and I told him that I've got a solution that's going to make him money, save him money, increase customer satisfaction, and be more compliant. And that led to a $74 million managed service deal per year, which was for 5 years, and then they extended for another 5 years. So, that's going back to not only the business requirements, but what's in it for him as well, because it made his life much easier going forward running the business.
You're really showing that you're an FS tech seller here, and because almost any sale could be boiled down to making money or saving money, but you bolted a third one on there, which is make me compliant, and that's so unique to selling into regulated businesses, isn't it? Because it's an existential issue. If at any point they are not compliant, they lose their license. I mean, that's an extreme example, but I think you've highlighted it perfectly.
Correct, yeah, very much so. And in insurance and in banking, it's very much regulated. So you've always got to be, top of mind when you're proposing these solutions to big organizations.
Yeah. So, I mean, you before we kind of turned record on, you kind of shared a few things that I think are really beautifully contrarian. Like, if you were to share one of the skills that you've learned with anyone listening, like what's like one thing that you think you do brilliantly in the sales process that you could potentially break down for us?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier regarding understanding the business, right? So where are they as a business? Where are they trying to get to as a business, and how can we help them get there? I mean, IBM used to refer to as an as is to be plan, right? Where are they today? Where do they want to be in 5 years' time? And have that sponsor internally, and quite often it's a number of sponsors, sign up to that. For example, the number of companies I've worked for who at the start of the financial year, they put you under pressure to do an account plan and submit it to your manager for approval, but that account plan's never shared with the customer. So how can it possibly be an account plan if you've not shared the plan with the account, right? That I would refer to that as an aspirational plan, because that's what you want. Whereas when I am asked to do an account plan, I make the kind of first draft of it, and then I take it to my customer and I share it with them. I think, is this where I understand you are as a business, and this is where you're going? I've listened to your shareholder videos, I've read your annual report. Of course, we don't have to do that now, we've got AI. But if you go in and have that conversation with them and have the customer sign off on it, because at the end of the day, the customer is our boss. I mean, obviously we've got a line manager, but then if you go back into the line manager and say, I've got approval from the customer, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. This quarter, we're going to do that in that quarter, and this is how we're going to build up the trust and the business within the organization.
Yeah, I like that because rather than being like a covert piece of intelligence that you're kind of harvesting about your customer, it's something that it's a collaborative document based on what you think their requirements are while getting kind of, I suppose you could call it triangulation. You're getting feedback from the client.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Because at the end of the day, the voice of the customer is the most important voice in any sales opportunity we're running.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I was talking to another veteran salesperson recently, and we jokingly struck upon a great business idea, which was similar to this, but actually about forecasting. Like we joked that salespeople, if you showed your forecast to your prospect, would they agree in like the weighting and the deadline? And obviously, probably not. But actually, it's a similar thing to what you're describing there. Is if you actually tested the things you believe about your customer with your customer, would they agree?
Yeah, well, it's actually something I do every month when we're having a monthly review with them. I pull up all the opportunities we're running globally because, I mean, at the moment, I'm running 5 global accounts. So at any one time, I've maybe got 40 or 50 people putting opportunities in Salesforce for these customers. So I do put them onto an Excel spreadsheet when I'm having a monthly review with a customer to say, my chap in Brazil is telling me you're going to do this. Do you know about it? Do you have budget for it? Is there anything else you need from us? So I do always ratify it with the customer. And it's something else that I think, especially in American software companies, we're driven very much quarterly. And, one of the common questions is, what's a compelling event? Now, the compelling event isn't it's the end of our quarter. The compelling event is what the customer decides a compelling event is. So, especially with the big strategic opportunities. I mean, I'm running one just now that I've been running for 22 months. And, the good thing about an organization when you're working for them is no one ever comes to you to say, is it coming in this quarter or is it coming in that quarter? Because they know it's a very consultative engagement and there's lots of moving parts that we've got to make sure we've done the due diligence in. And, the focus should be on minimizing the risk, minimizing any risk to compliance, and of course, minimizing any risk of going live. So as I said earlier, it's very much a different mindset. You can't be quarterly driven. You've got to be definitely focused on what does a customer need to move it along at their pace.
I mean, you touched on, I think, what, if not for you, for many salespeople is a sore subject, which is kind of that cadence that's centered around the vendor's financial year rather than the customer's compelling events. I mean, is that something that you feel that you've had to manage as a salesperson throughout your career?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and it's a lesson learned for me, and when it happened, I never did it again. But, when I was working for a previous company, my line manager had a forecast that he submitted to his line manager, and one of the other account managers in the team had a deal on the go, and it slipped, and it was like $500,000 worth of revenue, and they asked me to go and bring in an order that was meant to come in the following quarter, but bring it in the quarter that we just lost the 500,000. And I went to them and I asked the question, and the CTO who I had been dealing with came to me and said, you've done an amazing job here for 12 months, but I never, ever, ever want to hear you, trying to chase an order up that we're going to give you next month anyway, to bring it into this quarter. And I did it because I was trying to help the other team member out. I was trying to help my line manager out. I mean, at the time, I was like 300 or 400% of target, so I wasn't under pressure to bring it in. But it did tarnish my relationship with that individual. That at that time, I always thought, I'm never ever going to do that again. And of course, after that, I went on to being a VP of sales and a sales director. And I never ever put my team under pressure to bring it in for the quarter. I do expect them to know when it's going to come in and what the customer's compelling event is, but I would never stack them high, sell them cheap at the end of the quarter, because any trust and value that you've built with the customer is then eroded taking that approach.
Yeah, I mean, I have coached and spoken to so many salespeople that feel that pressure, and you spend 12, 18 months building that relationship and you destroy it to bring it in 6 weeks early because it falls on one side of a financial line. And I mean, I think the pressure is more in listed businesses because you've got quarterly earnings calls, but I think salespeople, they need the support of their manager, but they also need to have a backbone, don't they? They need to be able to stand up and advocate for the customer.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I've worked for companies before. Thankfully, my current company doesn't do it, but I've worked for companies before where the manager will say, "Oh, I've got that in my number. I've committed that business." And that automatically puts the individual under pressure. But again, as you say, you need a backbone. You've got to push back to say, well, I'm glad you've committed it, but I'm not committing it because we're still waiting for X, Y, and Z to happen before we can move it forward with the customer.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had exactly those conversations where my manager said, "Well, I'm going to forecast it." I'm like, "Well, you do whatever you want, like, but be clear when I am asked, I will make it. I want it captured for the record that I never forecasted this deal. So it's not flushing back on me." Brilliant. Well, look, I mean, I think in many regards, sales is changing with technology. Like some skills are evergreen, but obviously you've got AI in the background. Are there any technologies or tools that as a seller, in the last year or two that you find indispensable or really valuable?
Yeah, I mean, a LinkedIn Navigator has always been valuable, but now with the AI capabilities you have either within LinkedIn or out with LinkedIn, I mean, internally we use Gemini, and of course, with all these AI tools, the more you train it to give you the right answers, the better it's going to be. So I think the AI tools that are there today to simply understand a business more, rather than sitting through reading pages and pages of the annual report. You can go in and look at some of the key performance indicators for that organization, and then using that with LinkedIn Navigator to find the individuals that you want to have a relevant conversation with. The funny thing is with banks and insurance companies, they all have the same pain points, right? And quite often, if you're ever in that 1 square mile in the city round about Bishopsgate and you go into one of the bars or restaurants there, you'll always get, a guy from UBS who knows a guy from NatWest who knows a guy from Barclays, and they all meet in the bars to talk about the problems. So if you can sort out a business issue and deliver value for one bank or one insurance company, you can bet your bottom dollar all the other ones have got the same issues, right? And once you become that subject matter expert in the voice of the customer, it helps you just to develop more business within that industry without giving any trade secrets away, of course, but many of them have got the underlying issues within their business.
Yeah, and I think it's more than just brandishing a reference case. It's being able to tell stories that resonate.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
That's a kind of an underrated and very timeless skill, isn't it? Being able to tell a story.
Yeah, storytelling is a big part of it, right? Where, you can go in and rather than talk about or show slides, you talk about this is how I helped company X and this is how I helped company Y. I believe you're in the same, I think you're in the same, you have the same requirements as they have. Like a lot of the insurance companies just now, Iron Mountain, we're known for keeping physical records, right? So I've got customers who we keep like 4 million boxes worth of policies for, right? And within the box, we've got 18 files, which might contain 15 pages per file of a policy, an insurance policy. Now, some of these insurance companies have to keep the policies for 80 years, right? 80 years. So, and the cost of storage and the cost of power and the cost of resource is going up year on year, if not month on month. So, what we're doing now with, one customer is helping them with a box zero strategy. But as you go around speaking to other customers and speaking at industry events, when you mention it to other insurance companies and banks, they say, you know what, we could do with a box zero strategy. We could do with all our policies in a digital format, so we can then go and look at, what clauses we have, or, what business we're doing in a particular region. But rather than going through paper copies, they can use AI to run their business much more efficiently.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a constant thread at the moment with all businesses that we're talking to.
Yeah. Could you tell us about, like, perhaps the most painful experience from your career? Because, like, we didn't come with all of the skills pre-made, and a lot of them are acquired through scar tissue that we keep under nice tailored shirts. Like, tell us a story about a scar.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one that I referred to earlier when I was asked to bring something in for the quarter, that was definitely a scar. But other ones could be just, again, early on in my sales career, and you see this often, especially in IT with long sales cycles, where an individual will keep on courting a customer or a prospect because I've spent 9 months speaking to them about a solution, and they're not any further forward. They don't have the commitment from the customer that they're going to do it. So, I learned that quite early on in my IT sales career, where I would rather have a no in month 2 than have a no from the customer in month 9, because, our time is valuable too. Of course, we've got to respect the customer's time, but our time's valuable too. And quite often, if I'm looking at a forecast and we've got an opportunity there for 60 or 90 days, it's kind of time to speak with the customer to ask, would you like to proceed? Yes. If so, let's do it. But if the answer is no, that's also good. If you're not ready for it now, I don't want to be sending you emails and you see another email coming in or another call coming in. Let's just have a good, honest discussion. And if we have to park it for a year or 2 years, I'll put it in my diary and I'll contact you in 2 years. And customers really appreciate that, because they don't want salespeople constantly phoning them and emailing them if they don't have a requirement there and then. And going back to my earlier comment, that's probably because you're not making them money, saving them money, or making them more compliant, and we've not ticked the 3 boxes. We may have ticked one of the boxes, but we've not ticked 3 of the boxes. And that's why you get delays in the sales cycle, because the customer hasn't bought into the value.
You pull on a really interesting theme, which is, I think, psychology there, and I don't mean psychology in the sense that kind of salespeople are set up to manipulate, but actually 2 things. So the example that you gave is salespeople clinging onto a deal that was a kind of a zombie. It's the deal that never was, because they're afraid to let it go, or optically for their line management make it look like the pipeline isn't as full as and healthy. So there's that component of being honest with oneself, and also how you framed that conversation with the customer as well, which is they never like to give bad news, and if they feel the weight of your expectation as a salesperson, they're less likely to give you the kind of the no or the not now that you actually need. So salespeople need to, I don't want to say make it easy for people to tell them no, but also, but there is a little bit of that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and it's well known in the industry as happy ears, right? You hear what you want to hear instead of hearing what the customer's actually telling you. And lots of people talk about it in sales training: 2 ears, 1 mouth, let the customer speak. But not only let them speak, you've got to digest it. Quite often, if I'm running a big opportunity and involved in a large global bank, I'll always sleep on it, and then the next morning decide what's the next best action, what's going to have maximum impact for the customer's business. So it's just about slowing it down again and just taking the feedback from the customer. And as I said, it's okay to get a no answer, because, rather than spend another 6 months courting that customer and having a false opportunity in Salesforce, you're better spending the 6 months going to find a new customer or penetrating into another part of the customer's business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Khalid, absolute gems. I've got one more question for you, if I may, and it's around prospecting. And I think for you, it's going to be quite different. Now, I think there are lots of different ways to prospect for new opportunities in 2026. But I think the fact that you're what I would call a strat account director, you've got that very limited number of very large accounts. How do you prospect in? How do you find new opportunities?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I started off in my sales professional career, I really enjoyed prospecting. I really enjoyed it because you're understanding and you're learning about other industries. So number one, you've got to be a subject matter expert, whether that be in higher education, emergency services, automotive, manufacturing, and now finance and insurance. So you've got to have the industry knowledge of what the client's trying to do. And then, as I said earlier, if you're understanding their business and what they're trying to do as a business, and then using Sales Navigator to either get to the individual you have to speak to or you would like to speak to, or better still, getting a recommendation from someone who knows that individual. As I said earlier, within banking, there's always someone, if you're trying to get to an end decision maker, there's always someone that you've done business with previously that can give you an introduction to that individual. I mean, that's always the best way. And I always say to salespeople, we're like a vintage sports car. We've got to have a really good service history, meaning, you've done your number year on year as an individual contributor. We've got to be presentable when we go and see the customer because, as you know, it takes 20 seconds for the first impression. And we've got to be reliable, right? So if you tell the customer you're going to be there at 8:30 in the morning, you better be there at 8:15 in the morning ready to do business with them. So it's a lot of basic things that I just think we've got to build into our day-to-day management of, if it's prospecting or delivery or strategic sales or just bringing that education to the customer of what's out there and how we can help them. And most customers, if you take that approach, they really value the engagement, because when you bring a team of subject matter experts in and show a customer how we can transform their business, that's proper value selling. It's not selling in cost. It's not selling on phone 50 prospects and let's try and get two pieces of business. I think those days have gone now. Customers know what they're looking for. They've got extensive information out there to go and do the research before you actually prospect them.
Yeah, I mean, I there's so many points I do agree with there, but one where I'm actually starting to question myself is, so like you, as a strategic seller, I was doing $20 million deals, that kind of nature of things. And I think when you get like that, the kind of prospecting you describe, really intelligent, warm intros, network, roundtables, they definitely are more appropriate for that kind of selling. But as I went independent, I felt that I'd kind of, some of those more raw skills, like picking up the phone, get rusty. And as an independent businessman, there are things I've had to dust off again. So I think the skills do vary across the type of sales that you do. And I still think there is utility in being, I think, not so much picking up the phone, but being unafraid to pick up the phone.
Yeah, you know what? It's so true. And a few months ago, one of my customers in one of the big banks, I needed a quick answer for something, and I phoned him on his cell phone, and I said, "Hi Ollie, it's Khalid here." He said, "Khalid, no one phones my business phone anymore." I said, "I know. How cool is it that we can just pick up a phone and I can phone you with a question and you can give me the answer? I don't have to email you. I don't have to put a call in the diary that we do a video call. It's just an old-fashioned phone call, right?" And he really appreciated it. And now it's amazing how often we actually phone each other now instead of emailing each other. But yeah, listen, I agree with that 100%. You do need.
We get so used to sending asynchronous messages that actually, I mean, you made a comment very early on about the personal connection. and picking up the phone. Not always, but not losing that. I think that does exactly that.
Correct. And just one other thing on that, on prospecting, because I do believe if we are professional, value selling, consultative salespeople, right? We should go from someone in Salesforce who's a prospect to someone who becomes a customer to then someone who becomes a friend. And what I mean by that is you've done business with them, you understand them as an individual, you understand their family, and you could just be in town one day and you're not looking for any business from them. Maybe you've moved on to another company and you just ping them to say, hey, I'm in town, would you like a coffee? Would you like a beer? Just to catch up as an individual. And that's something that I've got a number of people I've done business with over the years that I can contact if I'm in their village, or there was a senior chap at one of the big banks I used to do business with. He lives in London, but his mother lives in the village quite close to me here. And when he comes up to meet his mother, we go and have a pizza and we have a glass of Montepulciano. So, that's when we know we've done our job properly, because that trust is there. And I know whatever I'm selling in the future, I could go to him to say, can I interest you in this? I think it could help your business. Here's the reason why. And they'll deal with me because it's me, and they know that I'm never ever going to go to their business with something that doesn't add value to them.
Yeah, I really like that, and I've got a number of those relationships. But for me, and maybe this is something about me, I never felt comfortable entertaining before the deal is closed. It always felt like trading entertainment for winning the deal. But actually, those relationships that you describe, where after the deal is done and the project is delivered and successful outcomes were brought, then it's a lot nicer to be able to enjoy those relationships. And
yeah, it is, because at that point it's already, as you say, it's already done. It's not. Yeah, because of course with banks and insurance companies, they've got compliance internally. They're not allowed to accept gifts or monetary value items. So yeah, you would always do that post-sale and not pre-sale.
it's meritocratic, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Khalid, look, I feel that we could talk for hours, but we're out of time. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.